when it comes to creating groups, I've never been a fan necessarily since we're a lovely human group, but bringing forth more of humanity is quite more amazing than not. And so, since 4D and 3D, those who stay within separation consciousness are not bringing more of their humanity to the forefront or humanity together, we get to create a group, the Enlightenment Soul Age group, the 5D mystics, and the functional adults. Now, we love having people of all walks of life, so bringing spirituality, and science. When I say science, what I should say is educators, the expanding consciousness kind. So there's different ones, the ones who build, of course, empirical data, not the ones who try to disseminate conspiracy stuff or fake stuff, like, things that are not necessarily worth spending your time in. If you've went to high school, at the very least, you know about the geography, even with a horrible memory, the globe, like basics. So science in the sense of we stay grounded. 5D mystics stay grounded in reality for real, even as we have those lovely clairs, which basically neuroscience explains what happens to our physical brain. So it's beautiful to have an integrated brain, to have a restored embodied self, to experience what it is like to be emotionally mature. Now, being in that 5D plane and having in your body that alignment of the physical, energetic, mental, your values, and your heart body, straightforward for a person who's always chosen love. For those who move out of their adaptive child emotional response, which means there will have been childhood trauma to a degree that was not processing. So the adaptive child with childhood trauma, first they get to create an awareness that they don't have emotional maturity and or experience with all of the range of emotions because they were not allowed a healthy childhood. It means they weren't allowed to be annoying. They weren't allowed to be angry, sad. There's 6 basic emotions: disgust, anger, sadness, and I forget the other ones, but there's a list on psychology, all these different psychology, good websites, and just the good trauma educators will inform you. They're basic because we are a species, so we have these emotions because they actually protected us in the wild. Now, when you mature it, you will notice it because you'll have a good relationship as an adult. And the 5D person from a love cycle will naturally move out of their charge states, meaning our charge states, with every person has, will go to sleep. They come up whenever something very important and personal happens, but really a person who's a Zen master of themselves, which is a 5D mystic again, is not going to be like, oh, I'm going to be perfect all the time. No, I'm going to have emotional triggers like anybody else. The difference, though, is taking ownership of it versus pointing that finger. So people who shame, blame, fault, and then, the revenge part, envy, jealousy, spite, it's not about those being good or bad, because again, 5D neutrality land, equanimity is the land of the truth, because that's where adults can talk, versus the adaptive children who get charged, which means they're emotionally immature, insecure, and in survivor mode, which means they already have also not been able to stay open-minded. They're not hearing you. Seat of empathy is off, but again, if you have emotional disconnect from your emotional body, you're not actually using left, right together. Right is reactive when your charges come up, when your stuff, unresolved trauma comes up and you use it. Transference is what it's called. Basically, somebody looks at you, quote unquote, weird, you're all over it, versus thinking maybe they weren't looking at me at all, which is what a confident human being who's a functional adult will know. Somebody might look at me, they might not be looking at me at all. Like a friend, they might not talk to me for years. They might not be thinking about me at all. So functional adult land with 5D mystics, pretty awesome with our oversoul. This is why the whole twin flame stuff, we don't get addicted to anything or anyone. That would require there to be a dysregulation of your nervous system and of yourself, which would mean you don't know how to handle when you are drinking coffee, eating food, having sex. What else was there? Alcohol, people that do drugs. So there's all areas that functional adults can be moderate in. And then we have those who are moderate in them, but they will make use of them. And then we have the ones who instead build addictive and compulsive patterns, which is where we have 12-step programs, which is why shaming, blaming, faulting, or doing anything of envy, jealousy, or spite is not really kind. So we have great 5D educators out there sharing about trauma-informed information, and that's why the 5D person is going to be supporting to destigmatize, any one of the groups in our lovely, lovely group of people who have a bit of a more challenge to move into their functional adults. Let's stop using movies to define them, because the movies are entertainment. 2, the whole devil, evil, that's for religious and philosophical institutions. When you look at a scale of evil created by an actual forensic criminologist, you'll notice that these are all individuals who need a very good therapist and a good personal development and more journey. It's fair and square if they don't have a relationship with emotions from their inner body, that they won't know how to behave with mature emotions because they don't have it. And their reptilian nervous system, the fight, flight, fright, is all over the place. Their defense system is always on. Like when people don't like the different sociological, political, religious views, like the fact that there is no devil or evil. Some people don't like it. They don't even like Reiki. Theologians have began to make lists of Reiki. I'm a Reiki practitioner, is apparently not holy energy. So we have different groups again. 3D, 4D. I thought that they'd actually be educated and move into what is humanity. So science, again, spiritual and spirituality. These are subject matters. See, an independent, differentiated self-thinker will use subject matters, mahasamadhi, samadhi. I use the word for a reason, because I actually noticed that a 5D person is not going to regurgitate books that they read. They will retain information and be very flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable, because the brain is integrated. So again, we're like, okay, I can deal with the unknown, uncertainty, unwanted. From the right mode is where we have the ability to sit in nothingness. The left mode is your chit-chatter, and they get to work together with a person who has integration of the brain, which simply put happens because your self-talk ain't inner critic or outer critic, which is the shame cycle. Then there's not denying and suppression, the emotions, suppressing, because see, this is where heartbreak, garbage, very important to note. They're not easy for people who don't know about good trauma-informed educators, because they don't know that emotions are everything. And when it comes up and you shove it back down, that means you're uncomfortable with it, because they are coming up because they want to be. Your body naturally heals itself. Our body is in intelligence, as is a human being. You can only be, as Sadhguru points out, intelligent if you wander. You know why? Compassion is a big deal, because your body, your actual human being body and your brain cannot heal if your brain is not thinking in a state of compassion. Because if you're in a state of fight, flight, fright, you're defending, and your talk is not going to be one that's exploring everything. Intelligent ones wander. Idiots are dead, sure. Teenagers, I remember being one. I remember being in the whole black and white thinking, which is natural because we have a teenage brain. We go through a pruning process in our physical brain. We also go through hormonal changes, and we can choose love, which I did personally. And any other 5D body type, I'm sure they're going to share their story at one point. So we didn't do the shame button. We did the love button, and our emotions matured. The people who did the shame button and they're in the love button right now, they have plenty to share about how their journey to discover, how do I mature emotions, how do I work with integrating my brain, which is something your brain can do. Your brain during sleep actually looks to heal itself. Thank you, Patrick McNamara, for informing us of the religious self. He's a neuroscientist who has a book out, still need to read it, on how there's not a demonic possession. There's no demon that possesses a human being body, but there's something that does happen in the brain when you go through all these nightmares. And so it's on the Well or Big Think if you want to watch it. But long story short, 5D individuals will have already intuitively known this. Now, the younger generation is obviously who I'm supporting as well personally, is to say we have infinite higher human consciousness potential. There are mystics, and we have amazing experiences with our oversoul. It's like freaking awesome. The trauma-informed educators, I love all of them, and thanks to them, I can support those people who want to move into their functional adulthood. And for those who need a bigger dose of important time, therapists are awesome. The good ones, the ones who tell you why compassion is how you heal your trauma. You know what doesn't? Studies have found that people who generalize, they don't resolve their trauma. Oh, and the other thing is they will at some point or another work on that definition of trauma, because it's not what happens to you, it's how your nervous system responds. So some of us were able to have a ventral vagal nervous system state, social engagement, and that's the integrated brain, because our default mode network is downregulated, so we don't scan others in the self to see if we're safe. If you have no weapon, even if you're nasty to us, we're still going to love you and talk to you, because that's what humanity can do as grown-ups. The charge states, not so much, but we talk more about how to handle that in your mindful relationships and you being mindful, and in mindsight, all these beautiful things to Tap into sensations, images, thoughts, and feelings, and more. Tune on in.